Hey guys, today I'm going to give you my overview and impressions of the xDuoo TA-20 Plus. So this is a hybrid tube headphone amplifier. It is an update to the TA-20, hence why it's called the TA-20 Plus. And as of right now, it is the most expensive headphone amplifier I've ever bought. It's $500 US. I paid actually the full retail price for this one because I didn't find any, this is actually a new product, so I couldn't find any pre-owned ones out there. Quite expensive. Previously, the most expensive headphone amplifier I bought was the TA-22, which is also a hybrid tube amplifier, but that one came with the DAC. This one actually does not come with the DAC. It is just a amplifier. So why does this one cost more, even though it's just an amplifier? It doesn't include a DAC. Well, I think it might be because I think the tubes might be a bit different, and it also uses a rectifier tube, which is supposed to give it a more tubey type of tone. It's not a full output transformerless tube amp, but it's supposed to be more tube sounding, I guess, compared to the TA-22. So yeah, and what do I get with it? So besides this, of course, I get the power cord and cable right here. Get the warranty card. Again, not sure like how valid this is, but since xDuoo is a Chinese company, but I'm guessing you had to like send it back to China or something for repairs. And then you get the manual, which is in Chinese, but there is an English section, I believe, as well. Here we go. Yep. So it basically tells you how to operate the amplifier. This one actually comes with it comes with a display and a VU meter, which is pretty cool as well. So here are the different parameters here. So outputs up to 2000 milliwatts or 2 watts on the balanced. And let's see, actually that's the unbalanced, sorry. 2000 milliwatts, 2 watts on the unbalanced or single-ended output. And then on the balanced output, it outputs 2600 milliwatts or 2.6 watts. So pretty decent amount of power. It actually does not output as much power as the TA-22 or the XA10 does, which I've reviewed before. I'm not actually sure why, because this is a hybrid tube amplifier. It's not a pure tube amplifier or anything. I'm actually not sure why this one is more expensive but outputs less power. Yeah. So there's something going on in here maybe I don't know as much about, but the xDuoo engineers probably know more than me about that. Yeah, so this one, yeah, 2600 milliwatts, which is a pretty decent amount of power. However, it is less than the TA-22 I have, which outputs 3000 milliwatts, and it's less than the XA10, which outputs 4000 milliwatts on the balanced. So again, not sure what's going on there. And it's a desktop balanced tube amplifier. Yep, does not have a DAC. The tubes can be rolled, of course. I'm just going to use the stock tubes, but of course you can roll the tubes to change the tone. And okay, so it's a fully balanced circuit. It uses, okay, here's the different part from the TA-22 that I have. It uses a 5Z4P tube for rectification. That supposedly makes a difference to tone. Now, I'm not sure. Like a lot of people say, the tube rectifier doesn't make a difference. Although my experience in guitar amplifiers tells me that if you use a tube rectifier, it'll make give it a bit more compression and produce like a more sag, like it makes the tone sag more, basically. A more compressed type of tone compared to a solid state rectifier. But that's just for me going from a guitar amplifier background, right? Like for me, I use tube rectifiers with my amps, which are tube amps, because I like to have the compressed, saggy type of tone. Maybe that's what it does in this headphone amp as well. I'm not sure. And then it uses two 12AU7 tubes to amplify the signal as a preamp type of stage, I believe. Because it's still hybrid, so I think this still has a solid state output stage or a solid state power output stage, but the preamp stage might be using these tubes. That's why. Class A buffer, metal polyester film capacitor, and it uses Japanese ELNA cylinder capacitors. Yeah, that's true for all the xDuoo's products. Actually, they use premium Japanese capacitors here, Nichicon capacitors. Yeah, so usually they use pretty high quality capacitors and chips and stuff. And then connecting audio, guys. Okay. Well, that's pretty self-explanatory if you guys know headphone amps. We can just take a look at the headphone amp. Okay, so here it is. It is quite a hefty beast. It is about as heavy as my TA-22, I would say. yeah, about as heavy. So it's pretty hefty. Definitely not portable. Definitely not like my Phio K7 for sure. That one's way more lighter and portable, and definitely not the XA10 either. The xDuoo XA10 is also like much more smaller and portable. All right, so this is the 6.35 millimeter or 1/4 inch jack for the single-ended output here, and then here is the 4.4 millimeter balanced. We also get a 4-pin XLR. Now, I'm not exactly sure the tonal differences between these two. I think they're just different balanced connectors. So if you have a 4-pin, then use the 4-pin. If you have a 4.4, use the 4.4. But to me, I'm not sure exactly. These are both balanced outputs, so not sure exactly the differences. The VU meter here, which is actually displaying the output power of the amplifier, so might actually be useful. A lot of VU meters though, they don't actually actually move that much, because you actually need to have a lot of power to move it. But we'll see with this one. I think this is actually a display right here. And then you can switch between aux1, aux2, and balanced. You can actually switch between the input here. I guess you just press down for the power on. Press down for power on, and then you can switch the volume. And I guess you can also hold it down to switch different inputs as well. I'm guessing that's how it works, because that's how it is on the other xDuoo devices. And if you take a look at the back. All right, so a few different connections here. None of them are digital, because it doesn't have a DAC. So it has a aux output out, so this is going to be a preamp out, I guess, or pre-out. And then you got two aux ins, RCA inputs, and you got two balanced ins as well. I'm probably going to use the balanced ins, and you got, actually this is pretty cool. You got the double XLR, and you get the 4.4 input as well. So if you, for my Hybee RS6 DAP, and that's why I didn't actually buy this one with a DAC. Why don't I just keep the TA-22? That one has a DAC built in, because I don't actually use the DAC on the TA-22. I use my Hybee RS6, which is a DAP, digital audio player, and it has a built-in DAC already, so I don't need to use any DAC. I don't need to use any external DAC. I just basically output the line out from my Hybee RS6, and it's going to go into one of these. 4.4 probably is easier for my Hybees, but I can use the two double XLRs as well, but probably I'll use this 4.4 balanced input, which is pretty handy, as my Hybee does have a 4.4 output here. Actually, it's just easier to show you guys, right? This is my Hybee RS6. It is a DAP digital audio player, and yeah, it has a 4.4 balanced output right here at the bottom, and it has a line out. So this is actually not making use of the headphone amp here. So this is strictly just using the DAC output of my Hybee RS6, which has a pretty good DAC. It's a custom R2R DAC by Hybee, and this is a $1,200 DAP. So the DAC here is pretty good. I don't need to use any built-in DAC. That's why I got this one. It's just an amplifier, because that's all I wanted. Don't need a DAC. So I just use the Hybee's DAC, and I use the balanced output here, and I can just use this balanced input here, which is 4.4. Great, I don't even have to use any kind of adapter for this balanced input, which is what I had to do with the TA-22. The TA-22 does not have this one, only has this one, so I had to use a converter from 4.4 to a double XLR. All right, and of course you got the power switch. It's actually back here, and that's a little bit annoying, I guess. xDuoo always has their power switches on the back, so you got to reach over the back to do it. It's a little bit annoying. Why couldn't they have the power switch on the front? Maybe it's for aesthetic reasons. Voltage selector here, 220 volts. You can switch it to 120 or actually 110. Switch it between 110 and the other one's 220, depending on where you live. All right, let's take a look at the tubes. This is actually a tube cage, so it is here just to prevent you from touching the tubes. So here are the tubes. Yeah, you can see this big rectifier tube here. That's something that I've seen in the output transformerless tube amps, but I've not seen it in a hybrid amp yet. So when I got the TA-26 a few years ago, but also by xDuoo, it was like this, basically. There was actually, it kind of just looked like this. There's two preamp tubes right here. These ones, let's double check, but yeah, 12AU7s. I believe they're the same tubes as the TA-26 I had before. So these two 12AU7s and a 5Z4P right here was pretty much the configuration of the TA-26, which I owned before. But that one was a pure tube headphone amplifier. So the benefit of having a hybrid headphone amplifier compared to an output transformerless is that the output transformerless tube amps, like pure tube amps, they do not play very well with highly like sensitive headphones and IEMs. So if you have something that's very low impedance, highly sensitive, then they don't play well with output transformerless tube amps. So with a hybrid design like this, it actually plays well with everything. So it plays well with high impedance headphones, low impedance headphones, high sensitivity, low sensitivity. It doesn't matter. It plays well with all of them. You just adjust your levels and stuff. But yeah, with an OTL tube amp like the TA-26, didn't play very well with those. So I think that's the benefit of this one. Although it kind of looks like a configuration of a TA-26, right? I mean, you do have a pretty substantial transformer here on the back. And then you have... yeah, and yeah, you have these guys, which are kind of in the same configuration, especially with this tube rectifier. So I guess this really is, it's a hybrid tube amp that really wants to sound like a pure tube amp, I guess, which I think that's what the selling point of this amp is. Because, I mean, let's face it, like a lot of people, I mean, there are a lot of people that just want to have the pure tube tone, and when they think of the hybrids, they're like, oh, it's got solid state, it doesn't sound much like a tube amp. And that's the case I felt with the TA-22s. TA-22 being a hybrid, it really did not feel like a tube amp. It just had like a little bit of warmth, but it was overly dominated by well, just like a more analytical type of sound, the type of neutral type of sound signature, or just dominated by that ESS DAC inside of there that just made it sound like a solid state amp. Not too different from a typical solid state amp. So part of the reason I wanted to get this one, the TA-20 Plus, is because I wanted to have that more tube sound, but I still want to have the capabilities, the versatile capabilities of the solid state or hybrid, I guess, type of design. So yeah, that's what this amplifier is trying to be. It's essentially a hybrid tube amplifier that tries to be like a pure tube amplifier or an output transformerless without the disadvantages of the output transformerless tube amps. So I think that's why it's so expensive. Yeah, $500. This is one of xDuoo's most expensive products. They actually, I don't think they maybe have like just one or two products more expensive than this, but this is definitely on the high end of their expensive, of their products. I mean, they usually don't make anything that expensive. $500 is like one of their most expensive amplifiers for sure. So yeah, this is the TA-20 Plus. Put the tube cage back on here. It's up to you guys if you think this looks cool or not. If you're not going to touch the tubes or anything, I don't think you need this, but anyways, I think it's cool also to have it as well, and you can kind of still see the tubes. Not like you're covering it up or anything. But anyways, yeah, I'm going to test this thing out, compare it to my FiOQ7s or XA10s, which are pure solid state headphone amplifiers, and also the TA-22 as well, which is another hybrid. So yeah. Stay tuned, guys. I'm going to compare all the headphone amplifiers, which I now have quite a bit of. So yeah, probably going to compare it to my XA10 and my TA-22. So two other xDuoo products. Both of those actually are quite similar to this one in price. Those are just like a little bit cheaper on retail. They're both about, what, $480 on retail. So I think it's probably right to compare those ones. But those ones do have a DAC also built in. This one does not have a DAC built in, so keep that in mind. But I'm gonna bypass the DAC on those anyways, so it should be okay. So yeah, the TA-22 versus the TA-20 Plus. Oh yeah, I also forgot it does come with a 6.35mm adapter as well, and I'm sure a lot of audiophiles already have one of these, but it's nice that they included that. Alright guys, so now I have the xDuoo TA-20 Plus compared to my xDuoo TA-22, and both of these are hybrid tube amplifiers. They sit actually around the same price range. This one's $490 US, this is $500 US. Pretty similar price range, and these are two of xDuoo's top products in terms of their range. So yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to compare these two because they're both hybrid amplifiers. The major difference is that the TA-22 has a DAC that's built in. It's an ES9038Q2M, whereas the TA-20 Plus doesn't have a DAC. So for this reason, the TA-22, as you guys can see, has digital inputs as well. So it has a USB input, right, for the DAC, and it has the coaxial, digital coaxial, and optical inputs at the back, in addition to all your analog inputs, right? It has the balanced in and it has the unbalanced in. which is RCA and XLR. The TA-20 Plus, because it has no DAC, only has the analog inputs, so it has the same inputs as the TA-22 on this side, right? The analog inputs, same balanced in XLR, and same RCA inputs for the unbalanced. So yeah, it's interesting. You might be wondering, why does the TA-20 Plus cost the same pretty much when this one does not have a DAC and this one does have a DAC? Shouldn't this one cost more? Well, I actually don't know. That's kind of why I want to do this test, because I'm wondering, is there a big difference in sound quality between these two? Why does this one cost the same amount when this one doesn't have a DAC? The big difference I noticed is this one has a rectifier tube. So this one, see this big tube right here. Now I'm not sure if this is a GZ34 or 5Y3, but they have a rectifier tube in this one, which makes it sound more tube-like. So it's not exactly an OTL tube amplifier or anything, but apparently this rectifier tube makes it sound more tube-like. This one does not have the rectifier. Is that is that going to be the main difference why this one costs the same amount with no DAC? Not sure. Also notice this has this big transformer right here, and this one does not. So it seems to me that this one, the reason why it costs the same amount despite having no DAC, is because this one has more of a tube-like sound, I guess, even though it's still a hybrid. So yeah, that's why I really want to test out here. Is that the main difference why they cost so much? Is there a sonic difference between these two? Yeah, just for the amplifier section. I'm not going to test the DAC section at all because, well, this DAC is pretty good, but the main thing I'm wondering is, why does this one cost, relatively more, speaking, right? Because this one doesn't have a DAC and yet it costs the same amount. So I'm just thinking about the two power section, right? Is there a difference there? Is that why this one costs, relatively more for the amplifier? Because this is just an amplifier with no DAC. Yeah, I just want to see if this one does sound more tube-like because of the rectifier tube. In terms of the interface and the front panel right here, differences you'll notice is actually the TA-22 actually has this display here, which is an OLED display, I believe. Otherwise, the actual inputs are pretty similar. It says 4-pin balanced XLR along with 4.4 and the 6.35. And this is the same thing, 6.35, 4.4, and 4-pin XLR. They both have these like large red buttons, which is kind of xDuoo's thing. They like to put these red buttons for knobs, and also is the on-off switch. But the other thing is this one has a VU meter, and the volume actually shows up here in this little, this is an interesting display. It's not the same as this OLED display, but this does display the volume and everything. And then the VU meter is actually a pretty nice touch as well. But otherwise, yeah, like just looking at from the spec standpoint and from the sheet, right? Like, what features does this one have? The TA-22 has more features than the TA-20 Plus, despite actually costing a little bit less. So it's interesting, right? It has an like OLED display and everything, has a built-in DAC. This one doesn't have a built-in DAC, doesn't even have an OLED display. It has just like the small little volume display and a VU meter. So yeah, I'm wondering why does this one cost more, relatively speaking? Well, that's what I'm gonna find out, right? I'm gonna use my Beyerdynamic T1s. This is a 2nd generation, and I'm using this one because it is a hard to drive headphone. This is a 600 ohm headphone, and yeah, in terms of headphones, like 600 ohms is pretty much the max that you'll go in terms of impedance. I don't think I've seen many headphones higher than that recently. So in terms of a headphone you can get right now, 600 ohms is pretty much, I think, the highest impedance out of any modern headphones. So that's why I'll use the Beyerdynamic T1s, and I'll see how well these both drive them. So again, just testing the amplifier section. I'm not testing the DAC on this because I want to know what is the actual difference in the tube power amp section here. Is that going to justify, like, what justifies this higher price, right? Because this is just an amplifier. No DAC, no OLED display, so what's justifying the fact that this is more expensive? Is this just this rectifier tube? Does it make that much of a difference? That's what I want to test out. And yeah, also notice this big transformer here this doesn't have. So I wonder if that's a difference, and does it sound more tube-like? So I'm going to use the Beyerdynamic T1, and I'll be using the XLR balanced in from my Hy-B RS6 DAP. So again, it's going through my Hy-B RS6 DAP because the DAC in this is actually going to be the same feeding through both of these. That way we can eliminate the DAC from the variables here. So it's only going to be the amp power, the tube amp power section that's going to be different. Okay, so yeah, first let's test out the TA-22, sorry, TA-22 first. Okay. Oh, turn this on. Okay, so yeah, this one has an OLED display, lights up. All right, now this is the volume. You can adjust the input here. We're going to switch to the balanced input here. All right, and it should be in the high gain mode. You can use the balanced input. This is dual 3-pin XLR here. I'll be playing the same tracks on each, of course. Good thing my Hy-B RS6 actually has a line out, so this one bypasses the amplifier section of my DAP because it actually has a line out, not just a regular headphone out. And I'll be using the 4.4 on my bearings. Volume up. Okay, now I'm going to test the TA-20 Plus. Okay. .4. Another thing that this one does that this one doesn't do is light up the tubes. So this one, the tubes actually light up because there's like orange LEDs shining up from underneath to kind of make the tubes look cooler. So yeah, this one lights up as well, and the VU meter is really cool too. This one from a retro perspective looks cooler, for sure. Just from aesthetics, this one looks cooler from a vintage retro aesthetic. Okay. Again, we can, oh, it's already unbalanced. Good. Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. I'll go back to this one. my headphones. What's the issue here? Balanced it. Okay, I had to go back and forth between these two just to make sure that what I'm hearing is correct, but there's definitely a difference. So this one to me, the TA-20 Plus, maybe it is the rectifier tube because the regular like tubes that they use in the power section are 12AU7s. So these are both 12AU7s. They use two of them each. That's the same between the two. So the only difference, major differences I see is this rectifier tube in this transformer. Yeah, maybe that's making the difference here, but I am hearing difference. TA-20 Plus does sound a bit warmer. The bass response is a bit tighter, and I hear a little bit more instrument separation on this one. This one, it's a little bit more like, maybe a little bit more lively, I guess, but it's pretty close. It's just that, yeah, to my ears, I think the TA-20 Plus does sound a bit better to me. It's just a little bit warmer, bass is a little bit tighter, and then the better instrument separation. I would say that's a difference. I could say this is a little bit more lively and dynamic, but actually this one is good too. So, yeah, I don't know, like, that must be the difference. This is rectifier tube in this transformer, because, yeah, this one doesn't have that. But maybe that does make that difference. I didn't know that. This one does sound a little bit better to me. Now, is it worth this price and not having a DAC? Well, it depends, right? If you need a DAC and you need to connect it to your computer or something else, like even your TV or something, this is definitely the way to go because it has one. But if you're just looking for an amplifier, I would say the sound from this one is a little bit better. But it's not like a huge difference. Obviously, you get a much bigger difference if you just upgrade your headphone, right? That's going to give you an even bigger difference. But in terms of just the amplifier itself, yeah, I like this one a little bit better. There's better instrument separation and a tighter bass response from this. So, and overall signature is a little bit warmer. But I think the main difference I notice is that instrument separation and the tighter bass response. Yeah, I mean, in terms of features, this one definitely has more features, right? I didn't even talk about the fact that this one actually, so they actually they all have three RCA inputs and outputs, but actually this one only has one aux input. This one has two aux inputs, both RCA. But this one has two aux outs. This one only has one aux out. That's because this one has a separate DAC out and a tube out because it has a DAC. Also, it has Bluetooth as well, since it has a DAC. So this one, in terms of feature set, right, you get a nice OLED display. This one is the more fully featured amplifier. So if you're looking for the fully featured amplifier that can do everything, Bluetooth, digital inputs, analog inputs, both balanced and unbalanced, this one is the way to go. But if you're just looking for a pure amplifier that, you know, if you like that tube sound, this one looks cooler, first of all. I mean, look at it, right? It looks cooler than this one. And I think it sounds a little bit better. But yeah, that's if you're just going for an amplifier, you don't need to have a DAC, or you already have a DAC or something like that. Yeah, this one is the way to go. So yeah, really depends on your needs, I guess. If you're just looking for a tube amplifier, go for this one. If you're looking for a fully featured amplifier with a DAC and everything, yeah, this one has more features for sure. So really depends on what you're looking for. Yeah, and then this one has cooler looks too, with the VU meter and the, yeah, this extra tube right here definitely looks more vintage retro. But this one has a display, so this one looks more modern, like, I guess. So yeah, I'll also have a sound test, so I'm going to test out these headphones, and I'll just bump it through a microphone, and maybe you guys can hear the differences. So I'll have the sound comparison test later after this, but let me know what you guys think. I think this one sounds a little bit better. Whether it's worth that price difference or not, I'm not sure, because it's really, you're paying for, this one has more features than a DAC. This one you're paying, yeah, you're paying more basically for that extra instrument separation and tighter bass response, in my opinion. So yeah, anyways, let me know what you guys think. I'll have the sound test coming up after this, so let me know.